And again, ladies and gentlemen, courtesy of the film soundtrack of The Princess and the Frog. That was Jennifer Lewis along with the Pinnacle Gospel Choir for a song called Dig a Little Deeper. Mike D and Steph Renee here on the set at the Blackstar Film Festival. Say hi to the people, Mike.
Hi, people. It's early.
You know, I tell you what,
we've been out all night talking to filmmakers.
People always laugh when I say that this time of day is early for creatives, but it really, really is. I used to tell people before I started working at Word, I used to tell people I don't want to talk before 10. I don't want to deal with other human beings before 10 a.m. It's just not particularly my thing. But we are glad to be here, and Mike has assembled quite the crew. I'm going to turn the camera so you can see just how many people.
Blackstar.
Yes, the Wu-Tang Clan of motion picture filmmakers.
That's right. I don't want to get in the way. Mike is videotaping this as well. The people looking at me like Cyclops.
YouTube later.
So I'm going to keep. I was going to say I'll keep.
You can turn it more towards you, or you want me to lean?
No. Well, okay. So we'll do this because you'll get the official video
over here too.
You'll get the official video from Mike's camera when he gets a chance to edit it and post it later. So we just wanted to kind of bring you into the space as we always do on Fridays as we have our conversation. And as you see, there are a lot of gentlemen here.
So we want to get right into it. But just to set things up, we need revolution. We've been up all night plotting. This Blackstar Festival is about resistance. Like, it's bad enough today they opened Dark Tower, which got terrible reviews.
Really?
And Detroit, which got great reviews, but I just hate that movie. I mean, it's just like... And
you're not the only one. I mean, It has been a consistent drumbeat from black folks whose opinions I respect, who are like, don't do it to yourself. They're like, don't go.
It's very painful. Yeah, it's a porn. It's torture porn, I should say. I shouldn't say it's porn. It's torture porn. It's a horror film where black bodies and white women are victimized for well over nearly half the movie, and there's no resolution or resolve. I mean, the movie to go see, we're going to talk about later, is called Whose Streets, which is a documentary about the real Ferguson rebellion, told from the point of view of the people that experienced it. We'll get into that the second half of the show. But yeah, they keep doing it to us. Even the Princess and the Frog. Finally, we get a Disney princess. Why is she a frog half the movie? Why did it make us a frog?
That didn't bother me. Dude, you know how I feel about New Orleans, first of all. And swamp. So I'm like, did we want...
See, you done drank the Kool-Aid.
No,
we're up here resisting.
I'm saying...
You colonized... Wait, all these other... Cinderella wasn't a frog.
Snow White was asleep with an evil white stepmother. Does that work?
Okay,
I'm just saying. I mean, when we talk about Disney princesses, there's plenty of evil white women that are suppressing other white women in a lot of the other princess films.
See, but that's
the treatment of women is one thing. I don't understand why we get so caught up in the fact that Tiana was a frog for so much of the movie. It was in a New Orleans swamp. It was Louisiana swamp.
We had the animator from it on the show, and he definitely said, well, that's how the original fairy tale was.
I'm just saying.
Can't we find some better fairy tales if we're going to represent ourselves? That's all I'm saying.
I love the fact, though, that there's a lot of other things I would complain about with Princess and the Frog.
Okay.
The fact that she did have a black father that got killed. So he wasn't around to help raise her. We didn't get a chance to see that kind of dynamic go on.
But you're so happy to have a black princess that you just accept the fact that it's a frog.
No.
And all the 15 other Disney princesses never were frogs.
I had already written Disney off when it comes to the princess thing after Pocahontas, which never should have been developed in the way that it was, because that narrative is all kinds of wrong.
I forgot. She liked Girls Trip, guys.
I did.
She loved Girls Trip.
Because I'm a black woman.
So you
Most
starved
black
for
women love it. No, because it was freaking funny.
It was hilarious.
See,
it was so funny.
See, okay, thank you.
It was.
I've been complaining about Mike being a hater for the last 2 weeks when it comes to that film. So here we are.
Get some grapefruits and bananas.
I'm surrounded by a lot of testosterone, y'all. I got to represent today.
The theme of Blackstar is resist. We got some talented, amazing next generation, just ready to kick the door wide open, and they're showing their short films here at Blackstar. this weekend.
Yeah, so
and
later
we
for
wanna go
Disney,
anywhere.
let's hear about the independent
Exactly.
filmmakers that are here in our midst.
No frogs' legs in any of your films. No. Okay, no anthropomorphic heroes, like real live human beings representing the culture within your films.
I have a little transformation in my film.
Okay.
But no
Yeah,
frogs.
words right there.
No frogs.
Okay.
Transformation is acceptable.
I'm just tired of having to see myself through some animal's eyes or through some other character. I want to see truth. So
Did you really see yourself in Tiana, Mike?
No, I said, like, you know, I grew up, I'm old. So we didn't even have a Tiana when I had to look at Bugs Bunny.
I mean,
and
but that
identify
is
with Daffy
progress, though,
Duck.
right? Now that we have a Tiana, is it Tiana? Is it
There's
there?
always a little trick to it.
Is that?
All right, we'll give you that. We're going to put a little
You know something
spin on
funny
it.
about Disney? Disney has this thing a lot of corporations have where they do things called brand deposits. So the idea being that by putting a multicultural person like a Princess Tiana or Queen Katwa, by making these kind of black female protagonist films, that there really isn't a profit of deadline on these films, whereas Disney's trying to make itself a place where Africa goes to for cinema. So by making one film with an African person, Queen, Lupita Nyong'o and this young girl as the lead, or making Princess Tiana, Disney's able to extend the princess brand into black households without really having to engage in any meaningful dialogue about the value of black women or even the value of having black princesses for black girls. So it's called a brand deposit. So like the idea is to not necessarily make money off the film, but to make impact and influence on the film so that black audiences come back to see
Like having a
themselves.
black mayor or a black president.
Right.
Yes, some of that. But I
you
think
said.
but I think it's important. So to me, it's like if we're talking about drinking the Kool-Aid, then it's not just about the product itself. It's also about the merchandising that happens in response to that. Now, if but I'm just saying that if we mindlessly go chasing after the dolls, go mindlessly chasing after some of the other things that surround the film, and we're not talking about it, we're not having critical dialogue about what these things are conveying, then we're all missing out. We've got to engage in the conversation behind the film, and and make sure that that's an important part of that, which is why
So
Blackstar is so
introduce
important.
yourselves as we have this conversation. Tell us about your films.
My name is E.G. Bailey, and I directed New Neighbors, which is about a mother that's trying to protect her kids in the face of all the police brutality that's happening. And she sort of takes an unusual route to do that.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say about the Disney thing is that we should be plotting to build our own.
Yeah.
And,
But I'm curious, though, in using that concept of brand deposit, how you feel about all the conversation that's emerged from the Procter & Gamble campaign that talks about having the talk with your kids, given the subject of your film.
I haven't seen the commercial itself. I've seen some online things talking about it. But it's hard for me to speak on it without actually having seen the commercial. But I think that to me, without having seen it, what it sounds like, it's hard for me to comment on it without having seen it.
I think it was well produced, but it's also, I think in the articles that I saw on it were basically white fragility based. It was sort of, it's like,
And that's a lot of the social media backlash.
Black folks we've all had the talk, like this is, just like you have to be twice as good to get half as far, or this is you just got your license. This is what you need to do. Like be respectful of the police. And at the end, it shows all these moments through the course of 50 years of these types of conversations, parents to their children. And at the end, it says, like, look, we need to get to a day where we don't have to have these conversations. But then they brand it, well, my black is beautiful, Procter and Gamble. So. In some ways it's like a public service announcement, but then at the same time, I think a lot of people don't like to be reminded of the fact that this kind of thing
happens on a regular.
Happening.
Yeah, exactly. So for those of you listening who this is the first time you're ever hearing about it, this is a new ad that was released through Procter & Gamble that talks about the talk, the way that black parents and guardians, our elders throughout the years have had to talk to young people about how you're supposed to be able to conduct yourself in society in order to stay safe, and how we've seen over and over again that there is absolutely no way of preventing the violence that exists in our community, many times at the hands of law enforcement and, the messenger, Procter & Gamble. So a lot of people have been very critical about it.
Before we move on, I do want to mention, if you're talking about branding, we just had Matthew Cherry on last week, and he's doing the Kickstarter, and one of the perks is you get a doll based on the character. This character, it's about a father doing his daughter's hair for the first time, and if you pledge a certain amount, you'll get an actual a doll rendition of
it's an animated film.
So that's a way to reverse and turn it. What are you doing, sir? Change.
That's directly
to me. You're talking to me right now.
Introduce yourself to
I'm
the
ready.
audience. Yeah.
No, we're on here every week. I'm tired of having to talk every week, trying to defend some mainstream Hollywood movie. Go see it. Ice Cube. This fight, it's entertainment. You're gonna laugh, and then you're just like, why?
Yeah.
So I plead, please.
I, like you, did not. Girl Trip was not my cup of tea, but I would not discourage anybody from going to see it.
Of course.
I think we need that support, but that was not my cup of tea. I don't want to bash or down black film publicly, but I felt it was.
But I'm gonna go
what you expect to see is what you got when you got to the movie theater. Yeah. That's what I'll say about it. It was
yes.
What do you exactly? What you expect to see is nothing like you were like, oh, that was thought provoking or that was riveting. I really like that storyline. But I guess I'm just like a bougie black film watcher. You know what I mean? I guess I'm like the Whole Foods instead of the ShopRite when it comes to filmmaking.
I'm going to toss this to you because I'm just curious to see what your reaction is. One of my buddies has said that black film will have achieved a certain pinnacle when we don't feel like each film has to be redemptive or speak to the entirety of the race.
Right.
If they can create, what was the one with the dead caveman? A Weekend at Bernie's?
Right,
yeah, right. If white America can continue to release completely frivolous films, then in order for black folks to be able to stand in that space and feel like we have achieved some parity in the industry, it'll be when we can release a Weekend at Bernie's and people aren't disappointed.
Yeah, I think every black film doesn't have to play on my sentiments as a black person. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about it. And just give me a good film with black people in it.
Right.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that.
So wait, but introduce yourself because
and your project.
All right, back to the real. Let me tell people who I am. Okay, my name is Teron Jones. I am the writer and director of a short film called Ibrahim, about an undocumented African immigrant that comes to the United States looking for a better way, trying to find the quote American dream. And while he's there, fed up with conventional jobs of an immigrant work, he starts to busk in the New York City subway. And while he's there, the country that he's from is going through a political coup. Mm-hmm. So he has to pool all his money together, make enough money to bring his family over before his country completely collapses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Love it. And when does it screen?
It's today, 4:30 at the Lightbox Theater.
And there's tickets still available?
Yes, tickets still available, all that good stuff. Support Blackstar Film Festival and black filmmakers.
Introduce myself?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Elegance Bratton. I am the director and writer of a short film called Walk For Me. It's about a boy named Hassan who enjoys voguing as a girl named Hannah. And the night his mother discovers her secret at a gay ball, similar to Paris is Burning or the film Kiki that came out last year. Yeah. But really, truly, it's a story about family and it's a story about motherhood. Two mothers have two different versions of the same child, and it's up to that child to determine the meaning of motherhood in their own lives.
Wow. You just blew my mind. I'm wow, I didn't see this one.
Yeah,
I don't know how you articulate that visually. I mean, clearly, it sounds like it comes from a very core space, and the beauty of a short film is that you can take a feeling or a singular idea and just explore it straight through.
See, I think every movie, when really, really good, like even a movie like Moonlight, you know, what makes that movie so good to me is that it really is an emotion, you know, the feeling of repression and the possibility of release from repression, you know, that's kind of hinted at and moved towards throughout the film. So I think every film that's good at its core is about one kind of revelatory emotional thing, and we're just building to that thing. But a short film does distill it.
And I'm going to talk to each of you, you know, when we come back in the next segment about how that is achieved through the medium of filmmaking. Sure. Because part of what I feel the strength of Moonlight is that there were some really sharp cuts in that film that kind of shook you out of the storytelling in a minute, to let us know that this is how, you know, some of these moments are very sharp points in these people's lives. And, you know, you don't get comfortable with I get this nice round warm film and then, you know, it just leads me into a feel good place and that's it. Right. That doesn't happen for a lot of people. There are sharp edges and there are incomplete ways that we try to get to these spaces.
And I just wanted to push back a little bit on this idea of like a just world where black people can be as mediocre as white people. I don't think that's justice. I think on some degree the civil rights movement has given us this equality kind of paradigm where we're searching for equality so much so that we're willing to settle for the lowest common denominator. And I don't for one believe that the systems of white supremacy will abate if we can be as average or as mediocre and get away with it the way white people can. It's going to take black excellence from every single pore, every single person to dismantle this thing that has been so concerned with keeping us in a position we're in. So to think that we can make, you know, when we can make crappy movies, like white people can make crappy movies, everything's gonna be better. No, we've been making coon shows for a minute, and it hasn't really improved anything.
And that was my argument with her. So just so you know, I'm totally in that space. But that was my pushback, and so I don't want you all to think I'm selling that particular angle. I just thought it was really interesting the way she articulated it.
I like the idea of two young black people dragging a dead white body around.
And with no consequences.
I think that's
it's still funny. It's
I would
a
pay
comedy.
To see that.
Yeah.
I would pay to see that.
We have one more guest to introduce themselves before we have to take our break, ladies and gentlemen.
So my name is William Abani. I'm the one of the producers on Night Shift. The director right here, Marshall Tyler. Our movie is about a day in the life of a LA nightclub bathroom attendant. And I'll let Marshall tell a little more about the story.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, our film Night Shift, it's a day in the life of a bathroom attendant in an LA nightclub, and it's executive produced by Viola Davis, and we're just thrilled to be here. I mean, my friend, my boy, Rob, back home in LA, he had told me this crazy story about what he does on the side for money, and I just thought it would make a fascinating story, so I turned it into a film.
And it's a full circle moment because you have Eric Branco, who's not here.
Eric Branco, yeah, he DP'd both of our films.
Yeah, he's
He did Ibrahim and he did Night Shift.
Yes, and he's shot many a film that's played at Blackstar, and Tyler and Eric. I was there at the moment where they were talking at the symposium, and then like 6 months later, I run into him at Sundance. I'm like, wow, you're premiering. It happens that fast.
It's so crazy.
I didn't even see him go into the phone booth. Like he just came out at Sundance, and now it's touring the country, and it's big.
The
I'm super
Sundance
proud
tour,
of you.
This short. So, but I just want to say about Eric, when we met, you know, my whole goal was to make sure we have like black people in certain positions. But Eric is really fair-skinned, and we met here at Blackstar. So I stopped him and I said, "But just tell me one thing. What are you?" And when he said he was black, I was like, "Thank God."
Okay, so.
The Black Brotherhood Coalition. Well, we're going to have plenty more conversation with these assembled filmmakers as we come at you live. Reelblack Radio, part of the Mojo on the Go, broadcasting live from the Blackstar Film Festival. Keep your dial locked. We'll be right back.
And the greatest of these is love.
I tell you all, each and every time I play music from this group, that I am waiting with bated breath for them to announce when a full album is done. But that is a group full of Howard University alumni called Traces of Blue. They competed on the NBC show The Sing Off as students under the name Afro Blue, and have since gone on to record 2 amazing singles, but that's it. No full album that we are still waiting for. But if you are looking for them, both of those singles, I Feel Good, which we just played for you, and a remake of Michael Jackson's Human Nature, are available through most of your digital retail sources. And as soon as I get a whisper about the full-length album being available, we will let you know for sure. Hello to those folks who are joining us on Facebook Live, and welcome back to today's TGIF edition of The Mojo. We are in the Reelblack Radio Hour, and we're broadcasting live from Blackstar Film Festival. We want you to get a preview of some of the dynamic people who are screening, lecturing as a part of the 6th annual festival. And so, Mike, please let folks know about who's joining us at the broadcast table.
We'll let go of my frustrations with representation, because we have the antidote to a lot of the stuff that we're complaining about.
I was going to say, so we had all that testosterone around the table a moment ago.
Oh, yeah,
now
Wu-Tang
I have some more balance.
We had to get Wu-Tang
We've got estrogen in the house now. I'm happy.
We'll go 4:30 and 6 o'clock. You got to go to the shorts programs. Those guys are amazing, and they're part of the antidote too. But even more so, we were talking about Detroit earlier, and but the real deal, coming to theaters. Save your money, bring friends.
Yes.
This is important for people to understand what the resistance is really about, and the fact people always say, who's going to take the weight? This movie, Whose Streets?
Yes.
Coming from Magnolia Pictures, the same people that brought you I'm Not Your Negro, coming to the Ritz Theater.
I'm wearing my I'm Not Your Negro shirt.
Oh, you are? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so there are no coincidences in this world that we run into Jennifer MacArthur and Michelle Mater to talk to us about the power that can be represented within black film. So, Jennifer, you're the producer of Whose Streets, and Michelle Mater is a renowned professor, curator, creatively speaking TV, a good friend, founder, a co-partner in KJM3 distribution, which brought us all Daughters of the Dust 25 years ago.
Right. Which is, can we just take a moment and speak on that? Because, I think so many people have been able to reconnect to the film in its coming back into theatrical distribution and having conversation generation to generation about the significance of that film. But can you give us just a piece of your impressions of what it was like to help that film reach audiences in its first distribution?
Well, it was rather phenomenal. It was quite an experience for us at the moment in time when we were just becoming a company. Myself and my 3 partners, Mark Walton, Marlon Adams, and Catherine Bowser, and we saw the power that this film had. That was planned to go straight to PBS. And when we saw the film, we were like, oh, no, that's impossible. We can't let that happen. And so we actually rallied around, and I had been working with Julie Dash at Women Make Movies. We distributed her short films.
Yes.
And so I had been working with Julie for years at that point, and I said, no, we cannot allow this to go straight to television. Mm-hmm. And so when the result of the release of that film was as it was, we knew that was the potential. But until it actually happened, we didn't quite know the impact that it was going to have. And it was quite special. We remember lining up outside the film forum on Dr. King's birthday in 1992, and lines around the block in freezing cold New York temperatures.
Wow.
And busloads of women and people, young people, old people, coming in from all over the tri-state area to see that film for 2 weeks straight at the film forum. Sold out every day.
And I just want to, I'm sorry, Mike, because I know me, I get excited. But it's also, one of the things that I think why we encourage our listening audience to come to Blackstar is because this is about cultural phenomena in process.
That's
right? And so, I think about how impactful the film Daughters of the Dust was in its release, in our conversations about it. But what is it also like now to see how Beyonce grabbed that imagery and brought it back? So it's become a cultural phenomena all over again in the hands of this superstar who, is known all around the world. But people have been investigating what the symbolism is in so much of what she incorporated into her visual album.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. And it's been amazing because we've seen, multiple generations of of people now be exposed to the film who had only heard about it through their mothers or their grandmothers, even in some instances. And when we did, we did a 20th anniversary of the release at the New School 5 years ago, and we did like a little roast to Julie and had all these young women come say what the film had done to them and how it impacted them and influenced them to become filmmakers. And so now here we are, at the 25th, a similar kind of impact, but even because of the re-release and the restoration of the film, which is beautiful.
Yes.
I mean, if nobody has seen, if you have not seen that film in the restored version, you are missing out, because I still am seeing things that I did not see before in that film.
Beautiful.
No, I mean, we're up against a break, but I want to take your lead. Like, so you said 25 years ago, Lions were around the block to support Daughters of Dust, which is a vision of ourselves that previously never existed in the theatrical space.
That's right.
Whose Streets? Mainstream media has a certain perception of how they depict rebellion and what happened in Ferguson and the death of Mike Brown. Tell us about Whose Streets and what your version of the story.
Yeah. So I want to do that, but I want to make a connection here and make it explicit.
Yes.
In that, I went to film school, and Michelle was my professor and my mentor and so many things. And I saw Daughters of the Dust for the first time because of her. I saw, Usain Palsi's films. I saw Usman Semben's films. I thought I was going to be this hot filmmaker and realized that there were other people out there that were doing it better than I could. And it really led me to think about distribution. And she encouraged me to move in that direction. And I got my first job at Women Make Movies because of her. And from that point forward, really understood the trajectory, really understood, the importance of connecting to these stories, and that everything that we make and everything that we do is a part of a history. And so working with the young filmmakers that made Whose Streets, I wanted to bring that to the table. I wanted to bring that understanding to the table. And I think that that's what, that is part of, and they did too, so that was part of why the film is as powerful as it is because we understand it as part of a history and a trajectory, and that, part of a long struggle for Black liberation in this country. And for me, it's a culmination of 10 years of my work, working in film and working with filmmakers to show the Black experience in as much of an authentic way as possible. So Whose Streets comes out in movie theaters on August 11th. We had our Philly premiere last night here at Blackstar. Thank you, Blackstar.
Yes.
The film festival for Black filmmakers that people do not understand. I wish more industry showed up and just saw what was going on with these young filmmakers, because they're incredible. But it'll be here at the Ritz on August 11th. But the film really looks at what happened on the ground from the perspective of the activists. There have been some people who have sort of, why wasn't it more balanced, or why wasn't it more this or that? And to me, it is the balance, because what the mainstream media did, how they depicted and talked about what the experience was for people on the ground, and what it continues to be, by the way, is antithetical to what they experienced when they were on the ground. Exactly. and talking to people and the place of love and where all of this came from. Not a place of violence or anything, but a place of love and a place of patriotism and a place of being real patriots and calling our government and our institutions to treat us as if we are full citizens and real Americans like everybody else. And I think that that's even more important, in this in this Trump era, in a lot of ways than it was before. So I'm thrilled to have helped facilitate that, and to have brought this to, it means everything to me to have been able to bring this to movie theaters and to get this to audiences and to have it be in the commercial sphere and in theaters.
Yes.
to speak to and to speak back to the mainstream narrative about what happened.
We have to take a break, but if you can hang out for a little bit on the other side of this break, I would love to come back to that too, about being the balance, because I know that that's what Blackstar is all about. That's what the film's this year's theme is: resistance, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Resistance. And resistance has many different forms. So we want to, engage you in a conversation, introduce you ever so briefly to some of the folks who have brought their works here to Blackstar this year to engage in that conversation about resistance and using film as a tool to engage the larger society in that conversation. Extremely important work, and we'll continue that conversation in our culminating segment of this week's edition of Reelblack Radio here on the Mojo on Word Radio, 96.1 FM, 900 AM. We'll be right back.
I know I can reach you. I'll show you. I'll teach you, 'cause you don't know nothing till you know that I love you. Till you know that I love you. You know I love long walks in the park.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, comes to us courtesy of the group For Real, all spelled the normal way, from their one and only album that I'm aware of that they recorded, It's a Natural Thing. That song was arranged by former Take Six member Mervyn Warren and his musical excellence. The song is titled You Don't Know Nothing. This is Stephanie Renee welcoming you back to today's live version of the Mojo and Reelblack Radio. We're coming at you live from the Institute of Contemporary Art at 36th and Sansom from the 6th annual Blackstar Film Festival. I see Mike D. Hello to those of you who are checking us out on Facebook Live. And we are trying to expose you briefly to some of the folks who have brought their works here to this year's festival under the theme Resistance. And so many good stories being told. And as we, I'm turning the camera now. Don't get vertigo, y'all. As we have been talking about this idea of how the media, how mainstream media in particular, has given us some thoughts about protest, some thoughts about community organizing that have belittled the spirit and the energy of those people who have been engaged in these protests and in these movements as they've been emerging around the country. You mentioned this idea about balance. Mm-hmm. And I want to come back to that because I think that perspective is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. And the idea that your film being rooted in a particular gaze, in a particular perspective, being the balance is something I'd love for you to come back to, because that is part of the conversation I think we miss sometimes, particularly as we think about the role of Black film.
Mm-hmm. So I think my interest is in journalism and investigative reporting and documentary, and I work with filmmakers that are kind of in that space and what I consider hard news stories, right? And I think what we think of around balance and objectivity and this kind of language that comes out of sort of 20th century norms around journalism and the broadcast mass media model, the one-to-many, comes from a space where you traditionally had white men who were the objective, universal voice, mm-hmm. That brought, that were able to practice some kind of balance in their reporting, it kind of fell in this right, left, conservative, liberal sort of conversation around civil rights. And I think what this film tries to do is to get outside of that kind of structure or paradigm completely and come to a human rights frame, mm-hmm. where we start talking about our humanity. Yeah. And so we cannot have a conversation about balance. There's no balance when it comes to my humanity. Right, I'm a human being. Mm-hmm. I have a right to live, mm-hmm. And so do we all. And so I think, what we're trying to do, and what I'm trying to do with all the work I'm doing, is getting outside of that frame that is privileged, that white male gaze of so-called objectivity, which has never been objective, right? Mm-hmm. And own subjectivity and own that we all have perspectives that we bring to the table, yeah. and speak to the work and the experiences that we have from from and owning it and sitting in that space and giving balance, what I'm calling balance, to that old way of thinking that basically said that objectivity was even possible in the first place, and that it was solely the realm and of whites, essentially.
Well,
more and more, I think we need to be moving into that.
Absolutely. I mean, what they say, the truth will set you free. I mean, Whose Streets really moved me powerfully, and there's no alternative facts here. This movie, what's brilliant about this movie is it's made by talented filmmakers and people that are on the ground, but you're also, in addition to the footage that you collected, you're also using all the videos that we are all seeing at the moment of impact. Like Ground Zero. Can you speak to how that was put together?
Citizen journalism was a huge part of, and has always kind of traditionally been a huge part of my focus and my work, and a lot of that comes from having been taught by Michelle and being in the space of distribution and working in community and what that means.
Yes.
And taking that ethos and translating it into the actual creation and the production process. So the filmmakers, Sabah Folayan and Damon Davis, really wanted to pull from and access and support the people on the ground who were there and incorporate that into the film, into the story. That it actually became a community a community statement and something that was a record of what the community saw.
Yes.
So there's well over 30, 35 different pieces of content that we actually sourced for the film. Most of the footage that you see from news reports is all fair use, but the stuff from the community where people actually filmed, we paid them. We as respected journalists, and incorporated that into the film. So what you're really seeing is a community. Is a record from the community.
As I said earlier to Jim when we're off the air, it's actually the first film that I've seen that really gives you the personal perspective that we don't typically get in any of the films that are about what's happening with all of these ridiculous assassinations by the police. You never get to see the personal from the inside perspective, and this film does that so amazingly well. You guys did an amazing job with that.
Right, and also just the struggle always continues, but there's sort of like in the traditional narrative sense, all our leaders were killed, the movement ended. These people discover their purpose for living through this resistance, and with your film, I think everybody that sees this film gains strength and understands clearly what this whole situation is about, and it just it pulls the crust off your third eye. There's no way you can experience Whose Streets without really getting a clear understanding of the truth of what this whole Blackstar thing and why these images are important.
Right. Well, and that goes back to, what I was saying earlier, ladies and gentlemen, about the fact that the crowd is now gathering for the panel that we'll be covering for you momentarily, is about using filmmaking as a form of community organizing. And everybody, we're using my phone right now to broadcast on Facebook Live, but this idea that we have high definition cameras, many of us who have smartphones, right in the palm of our hands, how we use that. If we're all going to be making duck lips and shooting selfies all day, that's one thing. But to be able to capture a moment in the moment and be able to share that with a worldwide audience and let them know specifically how things happened through literally their own lens is such a profound way of engaging with people. So I thank you for the impetus of putting Whose Streets together, period, and the fact that we'll be able to go into a theater. If you missed it last night, go into a theater and sit down and spend some time with it as it is distributed nationally next week, and that you thought it not robbery to bring it here to Blackstar to engage people as a premiere, to get that personal feedback, and that's the kind of thing that happens regularly here, ladies and gentlemen, at Blackstar Film Festival, which is why you need to make time sometime between now and Sunday to get out here and participate personally in the wonderful information.
Right. So, I mean, so once again, we're talking to Jennifer MacArthur, producer of Who Streets, and Michelle Mater. Now, like, it's going to continue. So how can we stay in touch, stay connected with the movement, what you're doing?
So for the film, you can go to whostreetsfilm.com and see where the film's screening and what kind of events are going on. There's the Facebook page, Who
Group
Streets,
sales.
as well as Twitter, Who Streets Film. My company, Borderline Media. You can also find me online, Borderline Media, Twitter, Facebook, all those great things. But I just encourage people to through the film website to contact the team and figure out a way. If you want to do group sales, if you want to do that kind of stuff, it's all possible, and we really need the support. We want people to come out. I think it's important, as you said, to sort of combat the imagery that's out there that's not in context. That's what I'll say. I will not besmirch another filmmaker and their art, but what I will say is I feel honored to have facilitated this process for these filmmakers, and their vision was incredible and is incredible, and I'm just grateful. I'm grateful.
And Michelle?
I am at Creatively Speaking film series on Facebook, Creatively_Speaking Instagram. That's a film series that I've curated for the last 21 years. And Mike D has participated in many times, and a lot of the filmmakers that are present here today,
The original, y'all,
have been part of Creatively Speaking. So
21. I thought 15 was bad. All right.
Sorry, Mike.
I'm
Sorry,
scared
I got
of
beat
you.
by a few.
I am scared of you, Michelle. Well, I mean, I consider you a mentor as well. And I mean, do you have any events coming up for people in New York?
We're actually going to be back at BAM starting in November.
Yay.
So, yes, on a regular basis. So look for us at BAM Cinematheque and also at the New Smithsonian Museum in D.C. in February. So
I'm a D.C. native.
All right.
So whenever I hear people about going to the Blacksonian, it makes me excited.
All right. Troy.
So, again, thank you. I mean, I know people. I mean, they not only put their bodies but their lives on the line. And I mean, are there? I was going to ask yesterday. Like, there are a lot of happy endings to the story in terms of the movement continuing. Were any of the people? Like, I know there's some casualties after the fact, like harassment. Like, one of the lines in the movie is, like, even after this rebellion is over, I still have to live here. Like, what?
Yeah.
Is there anything you can share about the subjects?
I would say that everyone is really struggling to continue to try to stay healthy and to stay engaged. And, outside of the incredible activists that we followed, the city of St. Louis in general, when I went there recently, I just felt as if everyone there was suffering almost from a form of PTSD because we haven't acknowledged that was a city that was under siege, where tanks and tear gas and rubber bullets were being shot at people, and everyone, black, white, everyone is having to cope with what that meant, and the fact that we've essentially moved on as a country and forgotten about the trauma that these people are holding. So I think that's something that we need to look at and think about collectively as a community. It's not just about telling these stories. It's about our spiritual and emotional and mental health.
Yes.
And what are we going to do about that, and how are we going to care for ourselves and care for each other? Is really, to me, the biggest and most incredible and most important act of resistance.
Absolutely. And I want to say the fact that the NAACP has declared a travel advisory for the state of Missouri is not an accident. There are conditions that have been there, that have existed in that space, that have precipitated this before Ferguson and that continue post-Ferguson, that we need to be very conscious of. We thank you for all of your input on today's program. We got to take a quick commercial commercial break, ladies and gentlemen. And when we come back, we'll hopefully get a brief moment to give you a lead in for the panel discussion that's about to take place here at Blackstar about using filmmaking for community organizing. You're listening to The Mojo on Word Radio, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, and wordradio.com. Be right back. So long to those of you on Facebook Live.